I wish this game was at noon. It's not. 3:30 Eastern, ABC, the Texas State Fair. Oklahoma, Texas. Texas favored by 2.5. Interesting. Oklahoma, the big storyline there is like, okay, according to Brent Venables, they're assuming there's no John Matir. Message boards are saying otherwise, but we'll go back to that in a second. For Texas, man, got to get up off the mat, right? Like, you just got bullied by Florida in the swamp. And this is a Texas team now that has their back definitively up against a wall. Can you find a way in a rivalry game to swing back, do something, and keep your college football playoff hopes intact? Arch Manning, looking at you. Offensive line for Texas, looking at you. We'll see. So I want to start with the John Matir conversation, though, when we break this thing down. Brent Venables said post-Kent State win, he is assuming that John Matir won't play in this game. Now, assuming is a dangerous thing to do. I won't go any further into that expression, but you catch what I'm saying. If someone were allowed to assume, though, I think Brent Venables would be the person that you could point to and say, yeah, he probably has a good gauge for his football team. I digress. Let's go ahead and say that message boards, though, relative to the conversation around John Matir being seen at Chipotle and telling allegedly the tortilla presser that took care of his burrito that he's going to play in Red River a week ago before Kent State. Let's say that ends up being the case. What percent of John Matir do you get if he ends up playing in this game? Is he 75% healthy? Is he able to run the football? What's the passing game like with that hand that had surgery on it, the throwing hand that is? I digress. We'll see what happens there. I just want to say this before we get into the rest of the breakdown. If John Matir plays, I think the emotional temperature of Oklahoma changes. I think it is ramped up even further. I think John Matir is an absolute gamer. I wouldn't be shocked if he played in this game, just full transparency. I think that if it's up to him, he will play. But I can't in good faith do the rest of this breakdown just assuming John Matir plays when the head coach is saying, I'm assuming he's not going to play. So my take on this is, if John Matir plays, I think Oklahoma wins the football game. Full stop. Now, assuming he doesn't play, are we taking Oklahoma in this game? I don't know. Let's break it down. The thing with Oklahoma, man, even if John Matir doesn't play, the assignment doesn't change for you offensively, does it? You still need more from the ground game in the running back room. You still need your quarterback to be efficient throwing the football. You still need to scheme up some winners if you're Ben Arbuckle. You still need the quarterback run game to be there. My thing with Texas defensively, the way that I would attack them is different than how I saw Florida attack them. Like, Florida went right at them, dude. Florida has a line of scrimmage that can go toe-to-toe with what Texas has on the D-line. If I'm Oklahoma, I'm more focused on the displacement of Texas on the defensive line as opposed to just trying to dominate them the way that Florida did with getting a push, going 3 yards in a cloud of dust, power, outside zone, all those things. I think Ben Arbuckle, it's going to be about window dressing. I think it's about deception. I think it's about getting Anthony Hill's eyes going one way and the ball going back the other way. I think you'll see a fair amount of Michael Hawkins Jr. on the ground in the spot. I think it's all about setting up a winnable down and distance. Like, Oklahoma doesn't need to go for 200 yards rushing to win this football game. But I think it's got to be living in 2nd and 3, living in 3rd and 1, time of possession favoring Oklahoma. All those things are, I think, non-negotiables for Oklahoma in winning this football game. Do they get that? Remains to be seen. On the flip side, though, for Texas offensively, like, it's going to sound bizarre, but I think this is actually a spot where there's a ton of opportunity for Arch Manning and the Texas receiving corps to get some explosives. They had a couple against Florida they just didn't hit on, so take that as you will. But I can't get out of my mind's eye the Auburn game where Oklahoma just, disgraced the Auburn offensive line. Got after Jackson Arnold night and day. Setting records for that program with what they did rushing the passer. Make no mistake, if Texas does not figure it out up front on the offensive line, it'll be a rerun of the Florida game. It might be worse than the Florida game when it comes to how they get after the quarterback. Like, the ability for Oklahoma to rush the passer, I think, is superior to what Florida has. And so if we're Steve Sarkisian and the Texas offense, we got to find a way to get some quick game going, I would imagine, a fair amount of, like, the screen game going here. We got to give Arch Manning some answers, because if we're doing 3-step drop and waiting for plays to develop downfield, we're going to get our guy killed. It's not going to be a good way to live. So I say all that to also say, I think with scheming up the explosives, there are plays there on the back end for Texas to have that Auburn, I think, exposed a little bit but didn't hit on. And now, I'm not saying that Texas has Cam Coleman or that they have the caliber of receiver that Auburn has, but I still think that as aggressive as Oklahoma is going to be in this game defensively, there's going to be some plays to be had down the field. Does Arch capitalize? He didn't against Florida. If there was a time to ever do that, Arch, like this would kind of be the spot, right? I said this in our early preview. I want to say it again. I'm really interested by both teams' emotional status in this one. Like, obviously, it's Red River, so emotions should be running pretty high. Should be a pretty high level of pride for both sides. But can we for once see the pissed off Texas that we were promised before the year? Texas is on a mission. Been in the semifinals twice. Going to try to win a national championship this year. It's about this year for Sark and the boys. Like, I haven't seen an angry, hungry Texas, at all this season, quite frankly. Maybe a little bit against Ohio State, but even then it wasn't enough to get you a win. Can we see pissed off Texas for once this year? If it was going to happen, you'd like to see it happen in this spot. Now for Oklahoma, can we see the inspired version of Oklahoma? Because John Matir may or may not play, but if he doesn't play, don't you want to go play a little bit harder for your boy not being in the lineup? You want to go rally around Michael Hawkins Jr., notably now starting his second Red River in 2 years, so the more experienced quarterback in this spot when it comes to the rivalry game. Here's my feel on this. I think Oklahoma overall is the better football team. I think Oklahoma will accomplish more this season than Texas will. I think that with Oklahoma having John Matir in this game, I think they win this football game, if that's the case. Now, again, Brent Venables, for the third or fourth time this segment, I got to say it, has said he's assuming there's no John Matir in this game. So I'll go ahead and just roll with that assumption from Brent Venables, seeing as he knows his football team. Wouldn't it be so much like Texas, so much like the 2025 college football season, for them to bounce back and find a way to get it done in a rivalry spot? Wouldn't that kind of be right in line with the story of this season at this point? Weird stuff, weird weekend. I don't know. I think that it's very possible now that the Florida loss for Texas burst that pressure bubble. We keep talking about how Arch is pressing and Texas is playing tight and all those things. I think it's the combo of Arch having that pressure bubble burst, you would hope, after getting your second loss and getting just embarrassed on the road and everyone's talking bad about you. I don't think the Arch Manning hype is at all where it was even before last weekend. I think a lot of people now have sold their Arch Manning stock, and I think they're more than validated in doing so. But that pressure bubble, plus the rivalry, plus I think the overall talent level that Texas still has, plus the pride that Texas still has in this spot, I think Texas wins. I think Texas wins the football game. I think Oklahoma could win it with Michael Hawkins Jr., but I think Texas and the desperation they're at right now allows them to win this game. I'll take Texas to win, take them to cover. Final score, 28-25. I think the Longhorns keep their playoff hopes alive, and I think Sark calls a game and a half, and we see Arch look maybe not a lot better, but at least a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more just free after what happened last week against Florida. So there you have it. There you have it. We decided on that one. I say we. I decided on that one within the last few minutes. Went back and forth all week, or all day, I should say, leading up to that one. And, yeah, be lying to you if I told you I feel good about it, but that's college football week 7 for you.